For years, Israel and Iran had fought each other in the shadows. Through proxies in Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Through cyber attacks, assassinations, and mysterious explosions at nuclear sites and weapons factories. In 2024 to 2025, they crossed a line. Direct missile barrages, airstrikes deep inside each other's territory, and a short, sharp war that many hoped would be the big one they could both walk away from. But in this scenario, it doesn't stop there. This time, the restraint breaks. Our story begins with one incident that pushes both sides past the point of no return. After months of tense ceasefires and low-level skirmishes, an explosion rips through a highly sensitive Iranian site near Isfahan, a combination of airstrike and cyber sabotage. Iranian media claim it hit a major nuclear facility and killed dozens of engineers and Revolutionary Guard officers. Israel, as usual, refuses to confirm or deny anything. Inside Tehran's leadership bunker, the mood is different this time. The supreme leader and top commanders look not just at this attack, but at the pattern. Years of covert killings of nuclear scientists, strikes on weapons factories in Syria, the decapitation of Hamas and major Hezbollah leaders, weakening Iran's proxy network, and now, what they allege is an attempt to cripple Iran's nuclear program once and for all. They decide, if we don't respond massively now, we may never recover our deterrence. At the same time, in Israel, leaders feel cornered as well. They see Iran rebuilding missile facilities, trying to replace the losses from past strikes. Intelligence warns that within a few years, Iran could have more accurate missiles and possibly nuclear capability. Both sides feel they are running out of time. Both sides think they are acting in self-defense. And both sides believe the other will only stop when hit hard enough. That's how full-scale wars begin. At 4:30 a.m. Tehran time, Iran launches its first wave. Hundreds of ballistic missiles rise from multiple sites across the country, from Tabriz to the deserts near Yazd. Some are older Shahab and Gadru missiles. Others are more modern solid-fuel systems like Khaybar Shikan and Fatah variants, designed to be fast and harder to intercept. Their targets are not random. Israeli air bases like Nevatim and Tel Aviv, major air defense sites, intelligence facilities, and command centers near Tel Aviv and in the Negev desert. At the same time, shorter-range missiles and drones are launched by allied militias in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, trying to saturate Israel's defenses from multiple directions. In Israel, sirens scream across the country. Families grab children and run to shelters, phones lighting up with emergency alerts. Live TV shows glowing arcs in the sky as the multi-layered Israeli defense system comes alive. Arrow interceptors streak upwards to hit ballistic missiles in space. David's sling tackles cruise missiles and heavy rockets. Iron Dome batteries attempt to catch what's left coming in low. Many incoming missiles are destroyed, but not all. Some break through and slam into air bases, fuel depots, and industrial areas. A hangar collapses. A runway is cratered. A residential building near a military intelligence site takes a direct hit. There are casualties, including civilians. International media rush to call it the largest missile attack the Middle East has ever seen. But this is only the first half of the first night. Within hours, Israel responds. Long-range fighter jets, including F-35s and F-15s, take off for missions deep into Iran. In earlier real-world clashes, Israel had already experimented with this, striking missile and air defense sites. Now it goes far further. Wave after wave of aircraft and standoff missiles target Iranian air defense radars and SAM sites, command centers of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, key missile production facilities, and selected parts of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. The goal isn't just punishment. It's strategic. Blind Iran, strip away its air defenses, and cut off its ability to sustain missile barrages. At the same time, Israel intensifies strikes in Syria and Iraq, hitting militia bases, weapons convoys, and storage depots that feed Iran's regional network. The message is clear. The entire axis of resistance is now in the line of fire. In Tehran, explosions and air raid sirens become a new reality. Residents who once watched war on TV now hear it from their own rooftops. Full-scale war between Israel and Iran can't stay between just two countries. Very quickly, the front expands. Even if Hezbollah has been weakened by previous wars and assassinations of its leadership, it still has fighters and rockets left. Under enormous political pressure, it opens a northern front, launching barrages into northern Israel, striking Haifa, border towns, and key infrastructure, drawing Israeli artillery and airstrikes deep into Lebanon. Israel responds with massive force, hitting southern Lebanon, Beirut's southern suburbs, and the Bekaa Valley. The scenes start to resemble, but also surpass, the 2006 war and later conflicts. Apartment blocks collapsed, roads cut off, hundreds of thousands fleeing north or into Syria. In Gaza, whatever remains of armed groups tries to show solidarity with Iran. They fire what rockets they can, but after previous wars, their capacity is limited. Still, every rocket means more alarms in southern Israel, more airstrikes in return, more civilian suffering on both sides. In the West Bank and Jerusalem, tensions explode into protests, clashes, and sporadic attacks. The war between states feeds street anger and fear. Houthi forces in Yemen, aligned with Iran, step up missile and drone attacks on shipping in the Red Sea, targeting vessels they claim are linked to Israel or its allies. This was already a pattern during earlier crises. In a full war, it intensifies. International shipping reroutes, insurance costs explode, and global trade through the Suez route is disrupted. Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria attack U.S. bases, Israeli-linked assets, and regional governments seen as close to the West. Some governments try to stay neutral, but their territory is used as a chessboard anyway. The Middle East ceases to be a collection of separate crises. It becomes one large interconnected war system. While missiles fly, another war rages silently. Israeli and Iranian cyber units go into overdrive. They've hit each other's infrastructure before: power plants, ports, government networks. Now the gloves come off. Power outages hit parts of Iranian cities as malware disrupts grids. Israeli banking systems face wave after wave of cyber attacks, trying to freeze payments and cause financial panic. Airport systems on both sides are targeted, causing flight diversions and grounded fleets. At the same time, information warfare hits social media feeds around the world. Doctored videos, fake casualty numbers, and shocking images, some real, some staged, spread like wildfire. Both governments push their own narratives. Existential defense, resistance against aggression, we had no choice. For people on the ground, it doesn't matter whose story seems more convincing. They just want the noise and the fear to stop. Full-scale war between Israel and Iran is not just a regional earthquake. It's a global one. Iran sits near the Strait of Hormuz, through which a huge share of the world's oil and gas flows. In our scenario, Iran doesn't fully close the strait. That would bring direct U.S. intervention on a massive scale, but it does something more subtle and deniable. Accidental strikes on tankers, mines in shipping lanes, threats that make shipowners hesitate. Even a partial disruption sends oil prices soaring. Global markets panic. Countries dependent on imported energy, from Europe to Asia, scramble to secure supplies. Inflation spikes again worldwide. For ordinary families in faraway countries, this war shows up not as missiles on the skyline, but as higher fuel and food prices. The use is pulled deeper in, whether it wants to be or not. American warships in the region intercept some of Iran's missiles headed toward Israel, just as they already have in past real-world crises. U.S. bases in Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf are attacked by militias, forcing Washington to respond with airstrikes of its own. Officially, the U.S. insists it is not a direct party to the war. Unofficially, it is deeply involved, defending Israel, protecting shipping, striking Iranian-backed groups, and trying to deter Iran from escalating further. Moscow and Beijing see opportunities and dangers. Russia, already tied up in its own conflicts, offers Iran political backing and perhaps some intelligence, but avoids a direct clash with Israel or the U.S. China, heavily dependent on Middle Eastern energy, calls loudly for a ceasefire, positioning itself as a responsible mediator, even as it quietly uses the chaos to negotiate cheaper energy deals where it can. Neither wants a total collapse of regional order. Neither wants to openly fight the U.S. over Iran. So they walk a careful line. Support without direct intervention. No full-scale Israel-Iran war story is complete without one terrifying question. Does it go nuclear? Even in this worst-case scenario, we don't need to assume actual nuclear use to feel the danger. Israel is widely believed to have a nuclear arsenal, though it has never officially confirmed it. Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful, but many in Israel and the West do not believe that. As missiles strike airbases and defense sites, Israeli planners must consider a nightmare. What if Iran manages a crippling surprise? What if, over time, our edge erodes? At the same time, Iran's leadership worries. What if Israel decides to end this once and for all, targeting our leadership and strategic sites in a way we cannot recover from? This fear shapes behavior. Israel might hit more of Iran's nuclear-related facilities, risking massive environmental and political fallout. Iran might rush any remaining nuclear work deeper underground, hoping the world will see it as the only way to deter further attacks. The U.S. and Europe, terrified of nuclear escalation, push hardest for a ceasefire, not just to save lives, but to stop a slide toward the unthinkable. In this story, we'll assume both sides stop short of actually using nuclear weapons. But the psychological impact of that shadow is enormous. For the first time, many people in the region truly feel they're living next to a potential nuclear battlefield. It's easy to talk about air bases, missile fields, and command centers. But full-scale war doesn't stay clean for long. In Iran, airstrikes damage not only military sites, but civilian areas nearby. Apartment blocks collapse, hospitals overflow. Sanctions and disrupted imports make it harder to get spare parts for medical equipment and fuel for generators. Social media fills with images of wounded children, desperate families, and overcrowded morgues. In Israel, repeated missile alerts send millions running to shelters day and night. Schools close. Businesses struggle. People sleep fully dressed, ready to rush downstairs at any second. Even when interceptors work, debris falls in populated areas. Some rockets get through. Homes burn. Entire neighborhoods in the north become ghost towns as residents evacuate farther south. In Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and Iraq, the suffering is multiplied. They become the battlegrounds of other people's war, caught between big strategic moves and local realities. Refugee flows grow. Lebanese families fleeing to the north or abroad. Syrians already displaced again. Iranians who can leave, trying to get out before sanctions tighten further or the war escalates. The war doesn't just destroy buildings. It reshapes societies, deepens trauma, and hardens identities. Us versus them. Never again. We will remember this. Full-scale war doesn't just strain armies. It strains governments. In Israel, the public starts off angry and united. Missiles raining down make people rally around the flag. But as weeks turn into months, questions rise. How did intelligence miss the scale of Iran's first strike? Was there a diplomatic off-ramp that leaders ignored? Can the economy survive another prolonged war? Families of reservists demand clear goals and a clear exit strategy. Opposition politicians criticize the government's choices. Old internal disputes over religion and secularism, over peace and security, over political reform, bubble back up, now wrapped in wartime emotion. In Iran, the leadership faces a different challenge. Sanctions tighten, oil exports drop, living costs soar. Cities hit by airstrikes are angry and afraid. Many people support resisting Israel and the West, but they also wonder, why weren't we better prepared? Why were our air defenses so vulnerable? Why have we spent so many resources on distant proxies instead of protecting our own cities? Protests don't start immediately. War and crackdowns are powerful silencers, but frustration builds under the surface. When the war finally pauses, that pressure may explode. How does a war like this end? Not with a neat peace treaty, not with a handshake on a lawn. More likely, with a hurried ceasefire that almost no one is truly satisfied with. After weeks or months of fighting, several realities set in. Israel has severely damaged Iran's air defenses, missile production, and some nuclear-related sites. It has also degraded what remains of Hezbollah and other proxies. Iran, despite heavy losses, has shown it can still hit Israeli territory directly with large missile salvos and drag the whole region into crisis. The U.S. and Europe face serious economic pain and political pressure to end the chaos. Russia and China worry that a total collapse in Iran or a wider U.S.-Iran war would destabilize their own interests. So great powers, regional governments, and international organizations throw themselves into mediation. Limited ceasefire in Lebanon, de-escalation zones in Syria, a phased halt to Iranian missile launches in exchange for a pause in Israeli deep strikes. Promises, some public, many secret about future sanctions relief or security guarantees. Finally, a fragile ceasefire is announced. The war stops not because either side has achieved total victory, but because everyone, including them, is exhausted and afraid of where the next step might lead. So in this what-if world, who actually wins? On paper, many analysts would probably say that Israel achieves more of its military goals. It destroys a significant part of Iran's advanced missile infrastructure and air defense system. It degrades Iran's proxy network even further, especially in Lebanon and Syria. It shows once again that it can project power deep into enemy territory. Iran, meanwhile, would claim a different kind of victory. It proves that it can hit Israel directly with hundreds of missiles, not just through proxies. It shows that attacking Iran comes with high costs for Israel and its allies, militarily, economically, and politically. It keeps its regime in power and its regional influence, although both are damaged. But if you step back from military scorecards, the picture is darker. Cities in both countries have been scarred. Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and parts of Iraq suffer yet another round of destruction. Regional economies are set back years. Global markets and energy supplies are shaken. The risk of future nuclear proliferation grows as states look at this war and think, we need our own ultimate insurance policy. In other words, everyone loses something fundamental. At the end of this story, it's worth asking a different what if. What if the 2024 to 2025 clashes had pushed both sides toward a long-term understanding instead of a bigger war? What if each side had recognized that their red lines were leading toward a direct collision nobody could truly control? What if the international community had invested more in serious diplomacy before the missiles flew, instead of reacting only when the sky was already on fire? Because that's the uncomfortable truth behind our scenario. A full-scale war between Israel and Iran is not science fiction. They have already exchanged missiles, already fought proxy wars across multiple countries, and already dragged great powers closer to the edge. The question is not just, what if it happens? It's also, what if it doesn't, and what do we do to keep it that way? So as the dust settles in our imagined future, we're left with a final image: cities rebuilding, families mourning, leaders giving speeches about victory that sound hollow to people who have lost everything. And somewhere, in both Israel and Iran, a teenager who grew up under sirens and airstrikes looks at the ruins and quietly asks, was any of this worth it?